Correctional Services Commissioner Makgothi Thobakgale says all the inmates who are found in possession of contraband will face the consequences of their actions. Prison wardens and SAPS members conducted a raid at the Johannesburg prison last night. Thobakgale, who led that operation, reacted in shock as he pointed out some of the items discovered during that search. Now, corrupt prison officials are being blamed for smuggling in some of the items into the prison facility. Inmates spent almost 3 hours outside their cells as the search continued. Now listen to this. Data, SIM cards, Wi-Fi routers, PlayStations, and in some instances, plasma TV screens were among the items that were seized. Last night's raid was aimed at ensuring the facility is safe for inmates and prison officials. You may have spotted him just a short while ago. Calvin Dludla is part of our team who was at that raid last night. He's with us now in Studio 9 here in our Auckland Park headquarters. For a sense of what they found, Calvin, lovely to see you. Thanks for popping by. I'm sure you didn't get much sleep last night, but I suppose we're benefiting from that. This is nonetheless a very serious story. I'm not surprised at all that so many people are talking about it the morning after. Perhaps let's start with what the objective was here from officials as they conducted this raid.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you and to your viewers. I'm glad to be here in studio with you. We spoke to Thobakgale Nxumalo, the national spokesperson of the Correctional Services, about this raid earlier, and then he told us that no, there was no major reason for them to just go there and conduct the search. It is their random search that they normally do different prisons here in South Africa.
Right, and I think what they found, as I mentioned there in that introduction, also took them by surprise.
It took them by surprise, but what I noticed is that they were swift. When we arrived there at around 8:15. Officials who are working at the Johannesburg prison were not aware that there will be a raid that is going to be conducted. I remember one official spotted me and said, "Hey, Calvin, you are from SABC. What are you doing here?" I said, "No, I just want to pick up someone. I'm leaving." So it means warders from the correctional center were not aware that the raid would take place. So when we went there, there are members that are called EST. Those members are specially trained, to deal with any disruption or any emergency situation that is taking place in prison. Those were the ones who were conducting those search. They were from Klerksdorp, they were from Krugersdorp, in some part of the province. So with sniffer dogs, and they were accompanied by the members of the South African Police Service. We went there, and when we went to Medium B, some inmates were sleeping. You could hear the noise from the officials. "Wake up, voga, touching doors, meaning, inmate, wake up now. We are conducting a search." You could see inmates putting their hands on their heads, going out, and then the search started. Some of the things that were bizarre that were discovered by the officials were cell phones, kettles, SIM cards, PlayStations.
Wow.
2 PlayStations that I saw, cigarettes, dacha, television, flat screen television that were inside the cell. So they took those items. The way they did their process was that when you go out, they search your place, your bed. When they search your bed, they will call someone that they call a cell cleaner, an inmate who's responsible for that cell. That person, they will ask, "Who's sleeping here?" And that person will say, "No, Ayanda Nyati sleeps here." Then they will say, "Go and call Ayanda Nyati to come and account for whatever that they have found there." Ayanda Nyati will say, "These are my items," or others will even deny Ayanda and say, "No, I don't know this item. Even this one is not my bed." So they took those items, and then, as you can see on our visuals, these are PlayStations that they found. They even had scissors, sharp objects. And you can ask yourself, how can an inmate bring a television?
Absolutely, and I think that's when we'll get to that in just a moment, because that's obviously among the many questions that people are asking as they take in this information. But from the inmates who did not deny that these items belong to them, I mean, what kind of defense did they try to put up?
No, others did say that is my cell phone, I agreed, that is my cell phone. And when we asked the commissioner, he did say that they will do a follow-up, they will check the cell phone, how the messages inside that cell phone, how did the cell phone arrive in prison. And then he said, when they found that Ayanda Nyati brought a cell phone, something that is not about, they have to be in prison. In your ticket, in your sentence ticket, you have your card when you get inside the prison. They will put a red pen in your profile. When the time for your parole arrives, then they will say, oh, but you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you get a certain sentence on that you will have to serve, and that will delay you to get out of prison.
Sure. I suppose those are the consequences that the commissioner alluded to. I don't imagine a situation, Calvin, where these inmates could have done this alone.
They would not. We had a live crossing with Thobakgale, the National Commissioner of the Correctional Services, at around 9:30 yesterday. He did admit, Ayanda, that some officials are involved in terms of bringing or smuggling some of the items inside the prison cells to inmates. Yesterday, I think it was around 1 o'clock on midday, the spokesperson released a statement saying that 2 officials in Mpumalanga, Emelo, were arrested yesterday morning because they were found smuggling items to inmates. So that means officials themselves, they are involved in bringing or smuggling some of the items inside our prison. And that is a problem, because if they bring items that will make a life a little bit easier for the inmates, that will mean some of the inmates will not rehabilitate.
Absolutely. And, you know, I suppose the next question that needs to be asked, it's one thing to bring in a cell phone that can fit into your pocket. You might even argue something like a pair of scissors that you can hide, even though they should be metal detectors as you walk into a correctional services facility. But as you mentioned, a television set, a PlayStation, a Wi-Fi router, that's a lot harder to try and be discreet about, which suggests to us that there's a brazenness in how all of this has happened, and also tells us that it's been happening for quite some time.
Yeah, indeed, that is correct. It has been happening for quite some time, because when I did my research earlier about the operation of a prison, I found that in the morning they come and they get counted by prison officials. Inside the prison, they will count them, and maybe if the cell have maybe 95, they will have to count them and see if the number is still corresponding with the number from yesterday. So it means officials know that there are television sets in those cells, and it means they are doing nothing about it, because you can tell that they have been watching television for some time. I think you remember there was an inmate that was trending from Goodwood in Cape Town, telling people that no, life is not that difficult in prison. If you think life is difficult in prison, you are playing. We have televisions, we have cell phones, we are eating breakfast, lunch and supper. And he was videoizing himself, that person. He had a gadget that had WhatsApp. You can ask yourself, where does the prisoner get data? Where does a prisoner get a cell phone? He communicates with people. How? So, which means no one is monitoring a prisoner that has a cell phone that is communicating with the outside community for a very long time. It's disturbing.
Absolutely. I mean, now we know they don't need the data because they've got Wi-Fi routers inside there. Calvin Dludla, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. What a jaw-dropping story, as I mentioned, and one which I imagine is going to have a whole lot of ripple effects in the weeks, perhaps months and years to come. Calvin Dludla, once again, great work. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. All right, so as I mentioned, we'll try catch up with the Correctional Services Commissioner, hopefully within the hour, to get you a sense of what the way forward looks like, given just the extent of the law breaking that frankly has now been exposed as part of this raid.